What if the person who knows you better than anyone is not even human? She waited thousands of years just to meet me, but the price of her love might be the end of two civilizations. Welcome back to Stellar Paradox. Today, the story is...
She knew me before we met. Earth was no longer sleeping. For the past 11 months, the world had been quietly unraveling in silence. Millions of people across every continent suffered from the same affliction. They could fall asleep, but they couldn't truly rest. Instead, they woke up exhausted, carrying fragments of dreams that didn't feel like they're sculpting vast glowing forests. Whispering voices in languages no one had ever learned, and the constant feeling of being watched by something ancient and patient. The experts called it the dream crisis. Elias Voss called it hell. He sat on the edge of his narrow bunk inside Orbital Research Station, Helios 9, rubbing his temples. The dim blue emergency lighting cast long shadows across the metal walls. Another night, another dream. Another dose of Somnex 9 waiting on the small table beside him, the strongest legal suppressant the United Stellar Alliance could offer. He hated the pills. They left a metallic taste in his mouth and made his thoughts feel slow and heavy, like wading through syrup. But without them, the dreams became unbearable. Elias was 34, lean and sharp-featured, with the quiet intensity of someone who had once flown deep space reconnaissance missions and lived to regret it. After the accident that claimed his co-pilot 3 years ago, he had traded the cockpit for a desk job analyzing neural data. Now, he spent his days studying other people's nightmares. He never told anyone that his own were far worse. He lay back down, staring at the low ceiling. The station hummed softly around him, the endless mechanical lullaby of life in orbit. His eyelids grew heavy. And then, she came. The dream always started the same way. He stood in a forest that breathed. Massive trees with trunks woven from what looked like glowing mycelium pulsed with soft emerald and pearl light. Tiny spores drifted through the air like living stars. The ground beneath his bare feet was warm and slightly damp, as though the planet itself was alive and gently welcoming him. She appeared at the edge of his vision, a slender figure made of light and living threads. Her skin shimmered with delicate patterns of bioluminescence that shifted whenever she moved. Long flowing hair seemed woven from moonlight and fine fungal strands. At first, she had no face, just a smooth, gentle glow where features should be. But tonight was different. Tonight, she walked closer. Elias's heart hammered against his ribs. He tried to speak, but the air felt thick, like breathing underwater. "You came back," she whispered. Her voice was soft, layered, as if a chorus of gentle voices spoke through her. "You always come back to me, Elias." He had heard those words before, dozens of times, but this time, the figure stepped fully into the spore-lit clearing, and for the first time, her face became clear. She was breathtaking. Large, luminous eyes the color of deep forest after rain. High cheekbones, full lips curved in a sad, knowing smile. She looked at him like she had known him for 1,000 years. Elias's throat tightened. "Who are you?" She tilted her head, spores dancing around her shoulders. "I have had many names," she said, "but you have always called me Lyra." A warm breeze moved through the forest. The trees seemed to lean in, listening. "I don't know you," Elias whispered, even as something deep inside his chest insisted otherwise. Lyra stepped closer until they were only an arm's length apart. She reached up and gently touched his cheek. Her fingers felt real warm, slightly electric, alive. "You will," she said softly. "You're coming to me soon. This time, it's real." Elias's pulse spiked. "What do you mean?" She smiled with heartbreaking tenderness. "Wake up, Elias. They're calling your name." His eyes snapped open. Alarms were blaring inside his quarters. The overhead comms crackled to life. "Dr. Elias Voss, report to briefing room Alpha 3 immediately. Priority 1 summons from Alliance Command." Elias sat up, breathing hard, sweat cooling on his skin. His left cheek still tingled where she had touched him in the dream. He glanced at the clock. 3:47 station time. "Shit," he muttered. 15 minutes later, he stepped into the briefing room, hair still messy, wearing a wrinkled uniform jacket. 3 senior officers and a holographic projection of an Alliance admiral waited for him. "Dr. Voss," the admiral said without pleasantries. 2 hours ago, the deep space array at Lagrange Point 5 picked up a new neural echo signal, stronger than anything we've seen before. It's no longer random noise. It's focused, and it's responding to specific human neural patterns. Elias felt ice slide down his spine. The admiral continued, "Your neural signature is one of only 7 that the signal reacts to strongly. We're launching the Aether 7 exploration vessel in 48 hours. You've been assigned as Chief Dream Analyst and Neural Interface Specialist." Elias stared at the holographic star map floating above the table. A bright green point pulsed in the Epsilon Eridani sector, far beyond any previously explored space. He thought of the woman in his dreams, of her voice, of the way she had said his name like a promise and a warning at the same time. "Sir," Elias said, his voice steadier than he felt. "What exactly are we going to meet out there?" The admiral met his eyes. "Something that already knows us, Doctor. The question is, how?" Elias swallowed. As the briefing continued around him, he absent-mindedly touched his cheek, where the dream still lingered like the ghost of a caress. Somewhere far beyond the stars, in a living forest that breathed as one, something ancient and gentle stirred. And it was smiling. The Aether 7 was not a warship. It was a sleek, silver-white vessel built for exploration and first contact, carrying a crew of only 12. Yet as it drifted away from Helios 9, Elias felt like he was stepping onto a coffin headed for the unknown. He sat in the neural interface chamber, electrodes attached to his temples, wrists, and spine. The chair was cold. His hands wouldn't stop trembling. 30 minutes until we enter the Echo Nebula, Captain Reyes announced over the intercom. "Dr. Voss, stay sharp. You're our eyes and ears once we cross the threshold." Elias closed his eyes and tried to breathe steadily. The pills had been taken away. Command wanted him fully open to this signal. For the first few hours, everything felt almost normal. Then the dreams began leaking into reality. It started as whispers, soft voices at the edge of his hearing, fragments of emotions that weren't his curiosity, longing, and something strangely like joy. The crew began reporting the same thing. One technician cried, without knowing why. Another kept drawing the same glowing tree over and over on his tablet. And then the nebula swallowed them. Outside the viewport, space turned into a living ocean of soft green, violet, and gold gas. Swirling currents of light moved like slow breathing. The instruments went haywire. Time itself seemed to stretch. Elias leaned back in the chair as the neural link activated. Entering maximum signal strength, the AI warned. The world dissolved. He was no longer on the ship. Elias stood barefoot on warm, living ground. The forest from his dreams had become real, massive, ancient, and impossibly alive. Towering structures that were half tree, half mushroom glowed with inner light. Vines pulsed like veins. Millions of tiny spores drifted through the air, sparkling like dust in sunlight. And she was waiting for him. Lyra. She looked even more beautiful than in his dreams. Her slender body was formed from thousands of fine, glowing mycelium threads woven together with living light. Soft emerald patterns flowed across her skin like gentle waves. Delicate white flowers bloomed and faded slowly along her shoulders and arms. Her long hair moved as if underwater, strands of silver and pale gold drifting in an invisible current. This time, she didn't just stand there. She walked toward him. "You're really here," Lyra whispered. Her voice was clearer now, gentle and melodic, yet carried an undertone of many voices speaking as one. After so many years of waiting, Elias took a shaky step backward. "This isn't real. This is just another dream." Lyra smiled sadly. She stopped a few feet away and tilted her head, studying him with those luminous forest green eyes. "Is it?" she asked. "Can you feel the ground beneath your feet? The warmth in the air, the beating of your own heart?" Elias looked down. He could feel everything, every detail too sharp, too perfect to be imagination. He touched his chest. His heart was racing. "Who are you?" he demanded. "Why do you keep calling my name?" Lyra stepped closer. close enough that he could smell the faint scent of rain and blooming flowers on her. "Because I have known you, Elias Voss," she said softly. "I have walked beside your dreams since you were a child. I whispered to you on the night your mother died. I held your thoughts when your co-pilot screamed in the vacuum. I was there when you wanted to end everything and chose to keep living." Elias felt like the ground had dropped out from under him. Those were his deepest, most private moments, things he had never told anyone. "That's impossible," he breathed. Lyra reached out and took his hand. Her touch was warm, electric, and strangely comforting. "I am Elvain," she said. "We are one mind, many bodies. I am only a small part of us, shaped especially for you." So, we could finally speak. She looked into his eyes with heartbreaking honesty. "I have dreamed of you long before you were born, and you have dreamed of me. That is why you came." Before Elias could respond, the forest began to shake. Cracks of white light appeared in the sky. He heard distant alarms, real alarms, cutting through the dream. "They're trying to pull you back," Lyra said urgently. "But it's too late. The connection has already begun." She placed both hands on his chest. A warm pulse flowed into him. "When you wake up, you will be on Elisera, our world. A small part of us will live inside you now. Not to control, but to understand. Please don't be afraid." Elias felt his body being pulled away, like a rope tied around his spine. "Lyra," he shouted. She smiled gently, even as the dream tore apart. "Welcome home, Elias. I've missed you." Elias woke up screaming. He was lying on soft, moss-covered ground. Above him, an alien sky glowed with soft violet light. Massive living structures rose in the distance, organic towers, connected by flowing bridges of light. His crewmates lay scattered nearby, unconscious but breathing. The wreckage of a landing pod smoked gently 100 meters away. The Aether 7 was nowhere to be seen. Elias sat up slowly. His left arm tingled. When he rolled up his sleeve, he saw faint glowing lines just beneath his skin, delicate, vein-like patterns of soft green light that pulsed in time with his heartbeat. He wasn't alone anymore. Inside his mind, he felt a quiet, gentle presence. Warm, patient, watching over him with care. "Lyra." Elias looked at the breathtaking alien world around him and whispered hoarsely, "What have I done?" Elias walked through a living city. Every surface breathed. Every structure pulsed with soft inner light. Nothing here was built, and everything had grown. Lyra walked beside him, her bare feet silent on the moss-covered path. The delicate green patterns beneath his own skin continued to glow faintly, syncing with the rhythm of the world around him. He could feel it now, a constant, gentle hum at the back of his mind, like standing inside a cathedral made of thoughts. "Where are we going?" he asked, his voice rough. "Home," Lyra replied simply. "At least, one of them." They stepped out from between two giant mushroom-like towers, and Elias froze. The city unfolded before him like a living painting. Enormous organic spires rose hundreds of meters into the violet sky, their surfaces covered in flowing vines and glowing neural veins. Bridges made of woven mycelium swayed gently between buildings, carrying small groups of Elvain who moved with graceful, flowing steps. Millions of luminous spores drifted through the air like slow-moving galaxies. In the distance, a colossal tree, larger than any skyscraper on Earth, stood at the center of everything, its crown pulsing with soft white light. It was beautiful, and it terrified him. "There is no alone here," Lyra said quietly, as if reading his thoughts. "Everything is connected. The city is us. We are the city." As they walked deeper, Elias noticed something unsettling. The other Elvain, some more plant-like, some more humanoid, would turn their heads toward him as he passed, not with hostility, but with quiet curiosity. He felt their attention like soft fingers brushing against his mind. "Can they hear me?" he asked. "Only the surface," Lyra reassured him. "Emotions, strong images, you are still mostly closed. But the longer you stay, the more open you will become." They entered a wide plaza where the ground itself formed gentle waves of soft moss. In the center, a group of Elvain sat in a circle, eyes closed. Above them, colors and shapes danced in the air, fragments of dreams being shared openly. Elias stopped walking. I can hear them, he whispered. Flashes came to him. A child laughing as it learned to fly for the first time. An old one returning its memories to the great network before dissolving. A being feeling deep sorrow because part of the forest was dying. Insquate. He clutched his head. The emotions were too raw, too pure. Lyra touched his arm gently. The flood of thoughts receded. You will learn to filter them, she said. Most humans who come here lose themselves within days. But you are different. Why? Elias turned to face her. Why me, Lyra? Why have you been watching me my whole life? She looked at him for a long moment, her luminous eyes full of something ancient and tender. Because you were lonely in a way that touched us, she answered. Most humans fear loneliness. You became it. You built walls so high even you could no longer climb them. We found that beautiful and sad. Elias laughed bitterly. So I'm your pet project? A lonely human you decided to fix? No. Lyra stepped closer. You are the first human we have ever tried to truly meet. Not study. Not contact. Meet. She gestured toward the giant central tree. That is the heart of the core of our collective mind. Every thought, every memory, every dream of our kind flows through it. I asked permission to create a singular self, just so I could speak with you properly. Elias stared at her. You're not really one person, are you? I am many, she admitted softly. But when I am with you, I choose to be mostly one. For you. A wave of dizziness hit Elias. He staggered, and Lyra caught him, her arms surprisingly strong. For a moment, he saw through her eyes. Thousands of perspectives at once. The entire city breathing as one living organism. Millions of minds linked in perfect harmony. He pulled away, breathing hard. I need air, he muttered. Real air. Not this. Lyra nodded with understanding. Come. There is a quiet place. She led him up a spiraling bridge that grew out from the side of a tower. They entered a chamber that looked like the inside of a giant flower. The walls were soft petals that glowed with a calming pale blue. A small pool of clear water shimmered in the center. Elias sat down heavily on a moss-covered bench. His hands were shaking. I don't know how long I can do this, he said. Everything here is too much, too connected. On Earth, at least I could be alone with my thoughts. Lyra knelt in front of him so their eyes were level. Being alone with your thoughts is what made you suffer, Elias. She placed a gentle hand over his glowing left arm. But if you let us, die quiet. You never have to be alone again. Her voice dropped to a whisper, and neither will I. For a long moment, the only sound was the soft pulsing of the living city around them. Elias looked at her, truly looked down, and felt something dangerous stir inside his chest. Attraction, fear, longing, hope, all at once. I'm scared, Lyra, he admitted quietly. She smiled, small and sad and impossibly kind. I know. I can feel it. She leaned forward and rested her forehead gently against his. But I am here. I have always been here. Outside the chamber, the city continued its endless, harmonious dream. And deep inside Elias Voss, something long frozen began, very slowly, to thaw. Elias couldn't sleep. Not in the traditional sense anyway. In this living city, sleep was replaced by something the Olvang called drifting. A gentle shared dream state where minds could rest together. But every time he tried, flashes of alien thoughts slipped into his head like uninvited guests. He stood on a high balcony overlooking the glowing metropolis, gripping the smooth, warm railing. The city pulsed softly below, like a single heartbeat. You are fighting it, Lyra said gently behind him. She stepped up beside him. Tonight, her bioluminescent patterns were softer, mostly pale silver and quiet blue. She looked almost human in the gentle light. I didn't ask for any of this, Elias muttered. I didn't ask to be watched my entire life. Lyra turned to face him fully. Then let me show you why. No more half-truths. Let me show you your own memories, Dancing eyes. Through us. Elias hesitated. Part of him wanted to run. Another part, a much deeper, hungrier part, needed to know. He nodded. Lyra took both his hands. Her touch was warm and steady. Close your eyes. The world shifted. He was no longer on the balcony. He was 6 years old again, sitting on the floor of his childhood bedroom. His mother had just died. Through the open door, he could hear his father crying in the kitchen. The little boy Elias didn't cry. He simply stared at the wall, building an invisible wall around his heart. But this time, he wasn't alone in the memory. He felt a gentle presence beside the child version of himself. Invisible, warm, and patient. A soft voice that wasn't sound whispered, "You are not alone. Even in the dark, someone is here." Elias watched in shock as the young boy relaxed just slightly, the crushing weight of grief becoming a little easier to carry. The memory shifted. He was 29, in the cockpit of the reconnaissance ship Vanguard. Alarms blared. His co-pilot and lover, Captain Mara Lynn, was screaming as the hull breach tore her away into the freezing void. Elias had reached for her, fingers brushing against her suit before she disappeared forever. In the memory, he felt something else, a quiet strength that had stopped him from following her into the darkness. A soft push in his mind that whispered Tres sin Leish in hand. Live. Please, live. You were there, Elias whispered, voice breaking. Even then, you were there. The memories flowed faster. Years of loneliness. Nights spent staring at the ceiling of tiny station rooms. The way he pushed people away before they could leave him. The quiet decision that being alone was safer than being hurt again. But every single time, he felt her, a Lyra de Sil, like a faint silver thread woven through his life. Never controlling, only accompanying, softly encouraging him to keep going. The final memory hit hardest. He saw himself from above, sitting on the observation deck of Elias 9, contemplating the airlock. One button, and it would all be over. The pain, the emptiness, the exhaustion of being human. A wave of gentle warmth had washed over him that night. A feeling that maybe, somewhere out there, someone truly understood his pain. He had walked away from the airlock. Elias gasped and stumbled backward as the vision ended. He was back on the balcony, tears streaming down his face. Lyra stood there, watching him with deep sorrow in her eyes. "Why?" he choked out. "Why did you care so much about one lonely human?" "Because loneliness is the one pain we Elvain almost never feel," she said softly. "We wanted to understand it. And the more we watched you, the more we fell in love with your quiet strength." Elias laughed through his tears, a broken, raw sound. "You call that love? Watching me suffer for years?" "We call it waiting," Lyra replied. "Waiting for the day you would finally come to us." Before Elias could respond, a new voice spoke from behind them. "Not all of us agree that waiting was enough." Elias turned. A tall male, Elvain, stood at the entrance of the balcony. His body was more angular than Lyra's, with stronger glowing lines of deep blue and gold across his chest and arms. He carried an air of calm intelligence. "My name is Thaler," he said, offering a respectful nod. "I am one of the memory weavers. I have studied human minds for many cycles." Thaler stepped closer, his expression serious but not unkind. "I believe your arrival is not a threat, Elias Voss. It is an opportunity. For the first time, two completely different forms of consciousness can learn from each other. A worries Nate coring the pates, without one absorbing the other." Lyra glanced at Thaler, a silent exchange passing between them. "Thaler is one of the few who supports true connection," she explained. "Many others fear that human minds will bring chaos into our dream." Elias wiped his face, still shaken by everything he had seen. "So I'm either a miracle or a virus," he said bitterly. Thaler smiled faintly. "Perhaps a little of both, but I choose to believe you are a bridge." The three of them stood in silence as soft spores drifted around them like falling snow. Elias looked at Lyra. Really looked, not as an alien being, but as the only presence that had truly known him, settling him, all of him, and still chose to stay. Despite the fear, despite the anger, something warm was growing in his chest. He reached out and gently touched her hand. "I don't know if I can forgive you for watching me all those years," he said quietly. "But," Thank you for keeping me alive. Lyra's eyes shimmered with light. She turned her hand and intertwined her fingers with his. For the first time since arriving on Elisara, Elias didn't pull away. The illusion of peace didn't last long. 3 days after Elias arrived on Elisara, the dream began to crack. He was walking with Lyra through a quiet grove when the first sharp pain hit him. It worked like a needle behind his eyes. The world flickered. For a brief second, he saw the glowing forest overlaid with the cold metal corridors of Helios 9. He stumbled. Lyra caught his arm immediately. Elias? I'm fine, he lied, blinking hard. Just tired. But he wasn't fine. The line between waking life and dream was slowly dissolving. Sometimes he heard the voices of his crewmates, who were still unconscious in healing pods. Sometimes he heard Earth, distant, angry, afraid. That evening, Thaler found them. We have been summoned, the memory weaver said, his deep blue patterns glowing with tension. The consensus wishes to speak with you, Elias. All of them. Lyra's hand tightened around Elias's. All of them? Elias asked. The elders, she explained quietly. The oldest and most rooted parts of us. They rarely take physical form anymore. They were led to the heart of Elisara, Discoth, the colossal central tree Elias had seen on his first day. Its massive trunk was wider than a city block, pulsing with soft golden white light. As they approached, the air grew thicker, heavier with the weight of countless minds. Dozens of Elvain were already gathered, but these were different from the graceful beings Elias had met before. Their bodies were taller, more rigid, with darker vines and deeper crimson patterns running across their forms. Their eyes glowed like dying stars. At the center stood one who seemed ancient. Her name, Elias later learned, was Vera. She did not speak with her mouth. Her voice echoed directly inside Elias's mind, cold and vast. Human. The single word carried the weight of 10,000 years of perfect harmony. Elias felt pressure building in his skull. Lyra stepped closer to him, her presence like a shield. I'm here, he said, trying to keep his voice steady. Vera's glowing eyes narrowed. You bring chaos. Your kind is fractured, violent, afraid of connection. Already your thoughts leak poison into our dream. Fear, greed, separation. We have felt them. Images flashed through Elias's mind. Wars, environmental destruction, lonely people screaming into empty rooms on Earth. The Elvain around him stirred with visible discomfort. One of the elders stepped forward. We should sever the link, return the human, and sterilize the infection before it spreads. Thaler spoke up, his voice calm but firm. Severing the link now would kill him, and possibly damage the network. Better one human dies than our entire civilization falls into madness. Vera replied. Lyra suddenly stepped in front of Elias, her gentle light flaring brighter. He is not an infection, she said, her voice ringing clear. He is the first bridge we have ever had. If we reject him, we reject the possibility of growing beyond ourselves. Murmurs rippled through the gathered Elvain. Some glowed with agreement. Many more burned with deep red disapproval. Vera stared at Lyra for a long moment. You have grown too attached, little dream. You were created to study him, not to love him. Lyra didn't flinch. I can do both. The pressure in Elias's head suddenly became unbearable. He dropped to one knee, clutching his temples. Violent images flooded his mind. Close Earth warships approaching Elisara, missiles streaked with fire, Lyra's body dissolving into glowing dust. Stop, he shouted. Get out of my head. The visions ceased instantly. Vera regarded him coldly. This is only the beginning, Elias Voss. Your people are already preparing to come for you. Some wish to save you. Others wish to burn this world, so your kind can never be tempted again. Later that night, Elias sat alone inside the flower chamber, staring at his hands. The glowing patterns under his skin had grown brighter. Lyra entered quietly and sat beside him. They're right, aren't they? He said bitterly. I'm poisoning your world just by being here. No, Lyra whispered. She rested her head on his shoulder. You are only showing us what we have never had to face. Imperfection. Pain. Choice. Elias turned to look at her. In the soft blue light, she looked heartbreakingly beautiful. I don't know what's real anymore, Lyra. Sometimes I hear my dead co-pilot's voice. Sometimes I think I'm still on the station, and all of this is just another dream you put in my head. Lyra gently took his face in her hands. This is real, she said. My feelings for you are real. She leaned in slowly and pressed her lips against his. The kiss was soft, warm, and electric. For a moment, everything else disappeared. No voices, no elders, no fear. Only her. When they pulled apart, Elias rested his forehead against hers, breathing shakily. I'm scared I'm going to lose myself here, he confessed. Then let me help you find yourself again, Lyra whispered. Every single day. Outside the chamber, the living city continued to pulse. But far away, in the cold emptiness of space, the first Earth warships had already entered the Echo Nebula. And on Elisara, the dream was beginning to fracture. Elias woke up screaming again. His body was drenched in sweat, and the glowing patterns beneath his skin burned like fire. For a few terrifying seconds, he didn't know where he was, resting on the station, in the wreckage of the Vanguard, or inside this living nightmare. Lyra was already there, holding him tightly. Shh, I'm here, she whispered, her voice trembling. It was only a memory echo. Breathe, Elias. But this time, it hadn't felt like an echo. It felt like truth. He pushed her away gently and sat up, staring at the soft glowing walls of the flower chamber. His hands were shaking. I need to see everything, he said hoarsely. No more gentle versions. No more shielding me. Show me the real memories, Lyra. All of them. Lyra hesitated. For the first time since they met, she looked afraid. Are you sure? She asked. Some doors, once opened, cannot be closed again. Elias looked her straight in the eyes. I'm tired of living inside half-truths. They went to the quiet grove, a secluded place where even the city's constant whispers grew faint. Lyra created a perfect circle of soft light around them and sat facing him, knees touching. Give me your hands, she said. The moment their palms met, the world vanished. Elias fell through his own life. But this time, he saw the silver threads. They were everywhere. He saw himself at age 9, standing at the edge of a rooftop after being bullied. A gentle warmth in his chest had made him step back. He had always thought it was instinct. It wasn't. He saw himself at 17, choosing to study astrophysics instead of literature, the subject he actually loved. A quiet voice in his dreams had whispered that the stars were where he belonged. He saw the day he volunteered for the Deep Space Reconnaissance Program, the day he met Mara, the day he decided to stay with her on the Vanguard, despite his instincts screaming to refuse the mission. Every major turning point in his life had been guided, not forced, never forced, but gently, persistently influenced. Lyra had been there through all of it. A whisper in dreams, a feeling in his gut, a warmth that kept him moving forward when he wanted to give up. She had shaped him like a gardener, shaping a rare and fragile flower. The worst revelation came at the end. He saw the night before the Vanguard mission. He had almost backed out, almost chosen a safe, quiet life on Earth. Lyra's voice had come to him in a dream. You were meant for more than this, Elias. Go, become the man who can reach me one day. He had woken up the next morning and signed the final papers. Elias ripped his hands away from Lyra's with a violent gasp. The grove returned. But everything felt different now. You. His voice cracked. You made me into this. The loneliness, the pain, the decision to keep flying. You pushed me toward the accident, toward losing Mara, toward becoming this broken person who had nothing left but the stars. Lyra's face was wet with tears. The bioluminescent lights on her skin flickered unsteadily. I never forced you, she whispered desperately. I only encouraged. I showed you possibilities. I wanted you to become someone strong enough to survive meeting us, strong enough to be with me. Elias stood up, breathing hard. So everything I thought was my choice, my pain, my growth, was partly you? He laughed, thus a painful, broken sound that echoed through the grove. I thought I was finally not alone. But the truth is worse. I've never been alone. I've had a passenger inside my head my entire life, steering me like a fucking puppet. Lyra rose to her feet, reaching for him, but he stepped back. Elias, please. Was any of this real? He shouted. Did I ever truly fall in love with you? Or did you plant that too? The pain in Lyra's eyes was devastating. I fell in love with you because I watched you fight, she said, voice breaking. Even with my gentle guidance, you still chose to endure. You still chose kindness when you could have become cruel. That part was always you. Elias stared at her, chest heaving. I don't know what's me anymore, he said quietly, and I don't know if I can ever trust you again. He turned and walked away, leaving Lyra standing alone in the glowing grove, her light dimming slowly. For the first time since arriving on Elisara, she looked truly broken. That night, as Elias sat on the edge of a high organic tower overlooking the breathing city, the lyre found him. You learned the truth, the memory weaver said, sitting down beside him. Elias didn't reply. Thaler looked out at the glowing spires. Love born from manipulation is still love. The question is whether you can forgive the method or if the wound is too deep. Elias clenched his jaw, staring into the violet sky. I don't know if I was ever meant to reach her, he whispered, or if she simply made sure I would. Far above them, unseen by either, the first Earth warships had entered orbit around it, and deep inside Elias's mind, for the first time, Lyra's presence had gone completely silent. The sky burned. Elias stood on the highest balcony of the Heart Tower, watching in horror as streaks of fire cut across Elisara's violet sky. Earth had arrived. Not with one ship, not even with a small fleet. Dozens of warships from the United Stellar Alliance dropped out of orbit, their engines blazing. Missiles lit up the atmosphere like deadly fireworks. They're calling it Operation Silent Dawn, Elias said beside him, his voice heavy. Their orders are clear: rescue you and neutralize the dream source by any means necessary. Before Elias could respond, the city screamed, not with sound, chill with thought. A deafening psychic wave slammed into his mind. He dropped to his knees, clutching his head. All around the city, Elvane began collapsing, their lights flickering wildly. Lyra appeared moments later, running toward him. Her once vibrant glow had dimmed to a sickly pale green. They've activated the purge, she gasped. Vera and the elders, they're releasing the Dream Erase protocol. What is that? Elias asked, terrified. It will pull every human consciousness into an endless dream until their bodies die, she said. They believe it's mercy. No more pain. No more violence. Only eternal dreaming. Red emergency light pulsed across the living city. The beautiful organic bridges began to wither. Spores that once floated peacefully now fell like ash. Elias grabbed Lyra's hand. We have to stop this. But it was already too late. A massive holographic projection of Admiral Reyes appeared in the sky above the city, broadcasted through every channel. Dr. Elias Voss, the Admiral's voice boomed. If you can hear this, we are here to bring you home. Resistance from the alien entity will be met with full force. We will not allow it to keep brainwashing our people. Missiles struck the outer groves. Living towers screamed as they burned. Lyra suddenly cried out in pain and fell. Elias caught her before she hit the ground. Her body was growing translucent, threads of mycelium unraveling. What's happening to you? He shouted. I was ordered to help activate the purge, she whispered, tears streaming down her face, to prove my loyalty to the consensus. But I refused. She looked up at him with fading eyes. I chose you, Elias. I severed my connection to the great network to protect you. Now, I am no longer truly Elvane. Her glow was dying fast. Around them, chaos erupted. Earth forces landed in heavy dropships, while thousands of Elvane, controlled by the elders, rose into the air, their bodies transformed into weapons of pure dream energy. They began projecting nightmarish visions directly into the minds of the human soldiers. Elias watched in horror as Alliance troops dropped their weapons, laughing maniacally or screaming as they relived their worst traumas on loop. Thaler staggered toward them, half of his body already unraveling. Take her and run, he told Elias. The heart tree. If you can reach it, you might still. A bright flash cut him off. A missile struck nearby. The explosion threw Elias and Lyra off the balcony. They fell. Elias twisted mid-air, wrapping his body around Lyra to protect her. They crashed into a lower moss platform. Pain exploded through his left leg and ribs. When he opened his eyes, the world was ending. The beautiful glowing city was burning. Human soldiers were trapped in endless nightmares. Elvain were dissolving into glowing dust. Lyra lay in his arms, barely conscious, her once beautiful form now fragile and fading. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I only wanted to love you, sis, without hurting you." Elias held her tighter, tears falling onto her fading skin. "Don't leave me," he begged. "Not you too, please." But her light was almost gone. In the distance, the giant heart tree, the core of the entire Elven civilization, began to darken. Elias looked up at the burning sky as another wave of Alliance dropships descended. He had lost everything: his crew, his trust in Lyra, his faith in humanity. And now, the only being who had ever truly known him was dying in his arms. For the first time in his life, Elias Voss wished he had never been born. The forest was dying, but it was still trying to protect them. Elias carried Lyra through the glowing undergrowth, his broken ribs screaming with every step. Her body had become frighteningly light, as though she were slowly dissolving into spores and light. The once vibrant emerald patterns on her skin were now faint and flickering. "Stay with me," he whispered. Voice hoarse. "Just keep breathing." Behind them, the sounds of war echoed through the trees. Distant explosions, human shouts, and the psychic screams of Elvain being torn from their collective mind. Lyra weakly lifted a hand and touched his cheek. "You should leave me. I'm no longer connected. I'm just in light. One small dream now." "I'm not leaving you," Elias said through gritted teeth. "Not after everything." He followed the faint pull in his chest, the same glowing lines beneath his skin that still connected him to this world. They led him deeper into the ancient forest, far from the burning city. The trees here were older, their trunks wider than buildings, their canopy so thick it blocked out the burning sky. Eventually, they reached a hidden hollow beneath the roots of an enormous mother tree. Soft blue moss covered the ground like a natural bed. Elias gently laid Lyra down. She looked up at him, her eyes dim. "Why are you still protecting me?" she asked. "After what I did, after I shaped your life." Elias sat beside her, exhausted and aching. For a long moment, he didn't answer. "I've been thinking about that," he said quietly. "All those years, you could have made me happy. You could have removed the pain. But you didn't. You let me suffer. You let me become who I am." He looked down at her fragile form. "Maybe that's the only real freedom you gave me." Quote, "The freedom to hurt." Lyra's eyes filled with glowing tears. "I wanted you to choose me," she whispered. "Not because I made you, but because you wanted to." Even after knowing the truth, Elias reached out and gently brushed a strand of glowing hair from her face. "I'm still angry," he admitted. "Part of me wants to hate you, but another part, the part that survived all those lonely nights, knows you were the only one who never left me." He took her hand. The faint green lines under his skin brightened slightly, connecting with what remained of her light. "I don't know if this love started as real," he said softly, "but I choose to make it real now, here, in this moment." Lyra smiled weakly. For the first time since she had severed her connection, some color returned to her body. "Then we still have a chance," she whispered. "The heart of dreams, the true core beneath the city. If we can reach it together, I might be able to speak directly to the consensus. Not as an elder's tool, but as myself." Elias looked toward the direction of the giant tree, now darkened and distant. "It's in the middle of the battlefield." "I know," Lyra said, "but I cannot go alone. I need your mind and your choice. A human choice. A free one." She struggled to sit up. Elias helped her, letting her lean against him. "Will you walk with me, Elias Voss?" she asked, her voice small but full of quiet hope. "Not because I guided you, but because you choose to?" Elias looked at her, this fragile, beautiful being who had both broken and saved him. He leaned down and kissed her forehead gently. "I choose you," he said. "This time it's my choice." They left the hidden grove together. Lyra could barely walk, so Elias supported her with one arm while she guided him through hidden paths only the Elvain knew. The deeper they went, the more the forest changed. The trees here sang low, mournful melodies that vibrated through their bones. As they walked, they spoke. Not about grand ideas or saving worlds, but about small, honest things. Elias told her about the nights he used to stare at the stars and feel impossibly small. Lyra told him how she had fallen in love with his stubborn refusal to give up, even when the entire universe felt empty. Slowly, carefully, the wall between them began to crack. At one point, Lyra stumbled. Elias caught her, and they both fell to their knees among the glowing moss. Instead of getting up immediately, they stayed there, holding each other as spores drifted around them like snow. "I'm sorry," Lyra whispered against his chest, "for every time I made your life harder." Elias held her tighter. "And I'm sorry I didn't believe you could love me without strings." In that quiet moment, beneath the ancient singing trees, something shifted inside Elias. He no longer felt like a puppet. He felt like a man choosing to love someone who had once tried to shape him, quote, and now needed him to be whole. Far ahead, the massive roots of the heart tree rose like mountains. The final leg of their journey would be the most dangerous. But for the first time since the war began, Elias Voss was no longer running from his past, or from Lyra, or from himself. He was walking toward the truth, sealing together with her. The heart of Elisara was no longer a tree. It had become a battlefield of light and consciousness. Elias and Lyra emerged from the root tunnels into an enormous cavern beneath the giant tree. Its walls pulsed with fading golden light, but large sections had turned dark and cracked. In the center floated a massive sphere of pure neural energy, the core of the collective dream. Vera was waiting for them. The ancient Elvain had grown enormous. Her body merged with the dying tree, roots and vines spreading across the chamber like veins. Her eyes burned with cold white fire. "You bring the human here? To the very heart of us?" Her voice thundered inside, skulls thundered inside their minds. "You are a traitor, Lyra." Behind them, heavy footsteps echoed. A squad of Alliance Marines in powered armor burst into the chamber, weapons raised. Their eyes were bloodshot, they clearly fighting against the dream influence. "Dr. Voss," the lead sergeant shouted, "step away from the alien. We're extracting you." Elias stood between the two forces, human guns on one side, the wrath of an ancient collective mind on the other. He raised his hands. "Everyone stop," he shouted. "If you fight here, you'll destroy us all." Vera laughed, a sound like cracking ice. "Too late, human. Your kind has already brought war to paradise." She unleashed a wave of raw psychic force. The world shattered. Suddenly, there was no cavern, no tree, no guns. They all stood in a vast, endless white plain, the merged dream space where human and Elvain consciousness collided. Elias looked down at his hands. They were glowing. Lyra stood beside him, but her form was fading fast, barely holding together. The human soldiers appeared as translucent versions of themselves, terrified and confused. Vera towered above them all like a goddess of light and vines. "This is where it ends," Elias said, his voice echoing across the dream plane. "Not with victory, not with destruction, but with choice." He turned to the human Marines first. "I know you're scared. I was too. But these beings aren't monsters. They've been alone in perfect harmony for thousands of years. They don't understand pain, or loss, or free will the way we do. If we destroy them, we become the monsters." One soldier lowered his rifle slightly, "But they were trying to erase us." "They were afraid," Elias replied, "just like we were." He then turned to Vera and the countless glowing presences of the Elvain behind her. "And you?" he said, voice steady. "You've watched me my whole life. You know what humanity is capable of. Dealt on both the worst and the best. Yes, we are chaotic. We hurt each other. We fear what we don't understand. But we also love. We create. We choose to be better, even when it's hard." Elias stepped forward. "Lyra didn't manipulate me because she wanted control. She did it because she believed I could stand here, alone right now, and choose connection instead of fear." Lyra's light flickered dangerously. She was using the last of her strength to keep the dream link open. Elias, she whispered. He turned and caught her as she started to dissolve. No, he shouted, holding her close. You don't get to die. Not after everything. Lyra looked up at him with fading eyes. Then let me give you one final gift. She reached up and placed both hands on his chest. A brilliant surge of emerald and gold light flowed from her into him. I give you my voice in the consensus, she whispered. Speak for both sides. Not as human, not as A.L. Vane, as Elias. The light exploded outward. Elias gasped as thousands of minds suddenly opened to him. Ward human fear, Ward L. Vane pain. Centuries of loneliness on both sides. The weight was crushing, but he didn't collapse. Instead, he lifted his head and spoke with a voice that carried across the entire dream realm. I choose neither domination nor isolation. I choose connection with freedom. The glowing lines under his skin flared brilliantly. I offer you a new way, not one mind controlling another, not forced harmony, but a bridge where humans can share dreams voluntarily, and A.L. Vane can experience what it means to be truly individual. It will be messy. It will be painful. But it will be real. For a long, breathless moment, everything was silent. Then, Vera's towering form began to crack. You ask us to risk everything we are. Yes, Elias said. Just as Lyra risked everything for me. Lyra's body was almost gone now. Only a faint silhouette of light remained in his arms. With her final strength, she smiled. I love you, Elias Voss. This time, it was always your choice. Her light burst into millions of glowing spores that scattered across the dream plane. First, carrying her final wish into every mind present. The white plane began to heal. The human soldiers lowered their weapons. Vera slowly shrank back to normal size, her eyes no longer burning with rage, but with deep exhaustion and wonder. So be it, she whispered. Let the bridge be formed. Elias fell to his knees, completely drained, still cradling the empty space where Lyra had been. The dream world began to fade. As reality returned, the last thing he heard was Lyra's voice, soft, gentle, and full of love, echoing in his mind one final time. Thank you for choosing me back. 3 weeks later, the sky over Elisara had returned to its soft violet hue. The heart tree still bore scars, dark cracks running through its massive trunk like old wounds. The air, but new glowing vines had begun to grow over them. Life, as always, found a way. Elias stood on a high balcony overlooking the recovering city. The air smelled of rain and blooming flowers. Millions of spores drifted lazily in the breeze, sparkling like tiny stars. Below, human engineers worked alongside A.L. Vane, carefully building the first shared embassy, a structure that was half metal, half living organism. It was strange, beautiful, terrifying, and it was real. Footsteps sounded behind him, soft, familiar. He turned. Lyra approached slowly. She looked different now. Her body was no longer purely made of mycelium and light. She had chosen a more permanent form. Still ethereal, still glowing faintly, but more solid. More hers. The price of leaving the collective had been high, but she had paid it willingly. You're still thinking too much, she said with a gentle smile. Elias let out a quiet laugh. Old habits. She stepped beside him, resting her head on his shoulder. For a long moment, they simply watched the city breathe and heal. The treaty was signed this morning, Lyra said softly. Voluntary dream sharing. No forced connection. No mind control. Humans who wish to experience the network may do so, but only with full consent and the ability to leave anytime. Elias nodded. And your people? Some are afraid, many are curious. She lifted her head to look at him. Vera herself said that pain and choice may be the next evolution we need. Elias turned to face her fully. He reached up and gently cupped her cheek, his thumb brushing across her glowing skin. And you? He asked. Are you okay? Being almost alone now. Lyra placed her hand over his. I'm not alone, she whispered. I have you. And for the first time, I get to choose who I am without the consensus whispering in my mind. It's scary, but it feels right. Elias pulled her closer until their foreheads touched. I've been thinking about staying, he said quietly. Lyra's eyes widened slightly. Here, on Elisara? Yes. He smiled faintly. Earth doesn't feel like home anymore. Not after everything. I want to help build this bridge. And I want to be with you, properly, day after day. No more dreams pulling us apart. Tears shimmered in Lyra's eyes. The real tears this time. You choose me, she said, voice breaking with emotion. Even after knowing everything. I do. Elias leaned in and kissed her softly. It was slow, tender, and full of all the words they didn't need to say anymore. When they finally pulled apart, Lyra looked at him with quiet wonder. You know, I waited for you for so long, she whispered. I watched you grow, I guided you gently, I fell in love with your stubborn heart. But now, she smiled, bright and warm. Now I get to discover you the way you truly are. Every day. Without secrets. Elias took her hand, intertwining their fingers. The faint green lines beneath his skin glowed in response. Softer now, gentler, like a promise instead of a chain. They stood together on the balcony as the twin suns began to set, painting the living city in hues of rose and gold. After a long, peaceful silence, Elias spoke the words he had been holding inside for weeks. She knew me before we met, he said quietly, almost to himself. Lyra looked up at him, surprised. He smiled down at her. But I chose to know her after. Lyra's laugh was soft and full of light. She squeezed his hand tighter as they watched the stars begin to appear in the clearing sky. Somewhere far above, the first joint human Vein research ship prepared for its maiden voyage. Quote, something not to conquer, not to study, but to dream together. And on a living balcony, on a living world, two souls, one born of earth, one born of dreams, stood side by side. Not perfect, not without scars, but finally, wonderfully, freely together.
Thank you for watching. Join Stellar Paradox. New stories every week, and some of them may already be watching you.